Brother, I think physical video games are very soon going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah. They're disappearing on store shelves. It's freaking sad.
Something happened in the last couple of days that makes that, ooh, the boogeyman's gonna come to get you, seem a little bit more terrifyingly real. As PlayStation owners who have bought Discovery content suddenly found that all of their Discovery content that they purchased, seasons of TV shows or whatnot, poof, gone like a fart in the wind.
But the announcement that hit me the hardest was that the Nintendo Wii U and 3DS eShops would be shutting down on March 27th, 2023. As somebody who loves playing and collecting games, this sort of thing is always scary. When a digital storefront shuts down or games get delisted, countless titles run that risk of being lost forever.
You know, it sucks, man. It sucks. I hate things like this because this is the future of video games where you don't really own anything.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking physical media and the death of everything. So if you've been under a rock and missing the news, it's been a hot topic lately, and certainly over the last year it continues to grow. And so without further ado, let's just jump into it. Hey guys, thanks again for joining us. And as I mentioned, over the last few days, there's been a lot of hubbub about comments made from Ubisoft executive. One in particular, which I've quoted here, says, "One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to having and owning their games. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They get comfortable not owning their collection." Yeah. Back to that earlier clip from the World Economic Forum, right? You will own nothing and you will like it. I don't think, for me, that's not a future I'm looking forward to. But what is the real danger? What is the likelihood we are going to lose access, right? Most of us have all switched over to streaming. You know, a lot of us are subscribing to game services like Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, all that fun stuff. So what does the future actually look like? Well, we can see here comments from Christopher Nolan, right? Huge director, Dark Knight series, Oppenheimer, just huge director. Says there's a danger these days that if things only exist in streaming version, they do get taken down. They come and go, as do broadcast versions of films. So my films will play on HBO Max sometime, and they will come and go. But the home video version is the thing that can always be there, so people can always access it. And since the 1980s, as filmmakers, we've taken that for granted. And now we have to make sure that there's a way that they can continue to happen, if not the physical media. And so there you have it, right? Christopher Nolan, this was, I don't remember the time frame where this was several years ago. But he gives us a glimpse into where we are today. Earlier this year, or at the tail end of 2023, right? Best Buy made a major announcement that they were going to drop physical movies. You'd no longer be able to go into Best Buy and buy DVDs, Blu-rays, UHD discs, nothing. They were all gone. And as soon as 2024 hit, they were blowing out those movies. Just clearing it off, emptying the shelves. And just like that, one of the nation's biggest retailers for movies, is out of the business. Some people that might not seem like a big deal, but if you are a movie buff, if you have a true high-end home theater, streaming doesn't cut it. Even if you pony up the additional for 4K streaming on something like Netflix or Amazon Prime, even YouTube, the 4K stream you get may have HDR, may not, but it generally doesn't have the actual quality, the picture quality, the depthness, the sharpness that a non-compressed UHD disc has. It doesn't have the same audio quality. You won't get the breadth of Dolby Atmos, 7.2, 9.2, all the different makeups that you really need to have a true home theater experience. Sure, you can do it. It's good enough. But if you care, it's just not there, right? If you are somebody who really deeply cares about seeing a movie the way it was meant to be seen, streaming just doesn't have that ability. Maybe someday, but it doesn't now. And just because you buy, right? You purchase streaming content, maybe you buy a movie, maybe you buy on Amazon Prime, maybe you buy a TV series, doesn't actually mean you may get to keep it. Here, I skipped ahead a little bit because here we talk about Sony. Just a few months back, Sony announced that their license with the Discovery Channel ran out. And you'd think, oh, well, I bought this content on my PlayStation, so I'm safe. They just won't have it for the people that want to buy new content. Well, Sony said that's not the case. We're actually have to delete all your shows. So all the seasons, all the individual episodes, everything you bought, poof, gonna be gone. Fortunately, just a few, about a week ago, they announced, thankfully, we've renewed our license. We came to agreement with Discovery Channel, and turns out we're not going to delete your stuff. But there you had an example of what can and will happen. Sony deleted things you purchased and you owned. Even though their platforms still exist, the content you purchased is gone. Which brings us to Nintendo. In March of 2023, Nintendo shut down the 3DS and Wii U stores. And at the time it was, they're just taking them down so you can't purchase new content. But if you own them, you can keep them. You can still go back and re-download your games. They'll be there. We're just shutting down the store to purchases because it's too hard to maintain. Well, fast forward to today, and Nintendo has announced that as of April 2024, all online services for the Wii U and 3DS are going to be shut off. And as you see here in this clip, or in this article from Video Game Chronicles, the rumors coming out of Nintendo are within a year or two, your downloads, you can't re-download a game. So if your 3DS craps out, if your Wii U craps out, the hard drive fails and you need to replace it, too bad, it's gone. All those games you purchased, poof, into the ether. They're not yours anymore. Then we have even, this one's the kind of near and dear to my heart, the Polymega. Famously, this was a system that was supposed to come out years ago, before COVID happened. And finally, thanks to an investment from Atari, people are starting to get theirs. In fact, most of the shipments that remain started shipping out last week. People started getting them today. The rest should get them through the next week. And then by mid-February, everybody with pre-orders should have theirs, and they'll have stock for new orders. So that's great. But as you see here, Polymega in that time frame lost their license with Pico Interactive. And when you purchased the modules to the Polymega that would allow you to play the different retro consoles and back up your physical media to those consoles, several of them came with games included already loaded to the drive, games that Polymega had licensed so that you get as a purchase bonus. But just a few weeks ago, they lost their license with Pico Interactive. And so what did they do? They pushed a firmware that deleted it off of everybody's systems. And again, just like Sony, we find within a few weeks, and in this case, probably about a week and a half, Polymega announces, hey, we've renegotiated, in a future firmware, we're putting those games back on your system. So the people that had been waiting, like myself, 3 or more years to get their Polymega, the things we were told were going to come on it weren't going to come on it. So you didn't even get what you weren't even going to get what you purchased. Again, thankfully they renegotiated their license, but for how long? How long before that goes away and they delete those games? And then, not to be left behind, Arcade 1-Up has done something similar. You think, hey, I've purchased these home arcade units. They come with 14, 15 games, some of them, some even more. Surely I won't lose those. Well, as we've seen, you have already. If you are the proud owner of the Atari 50th, one, I'm sorry you wasted your money. Like me, I purchased it. It's not that great of a cab. But two, I mainly purchased it because in addition to the title and lineup of games they've always had on these Atari legacy cabs, is it came with 50 Atari 2600 games that you could play on it. Something that none of the other editions did. So I thought, hey, that's kind of unique. It's probably not going to be around when they move away from the 50th. You'll probably just get the standard list again. So I want to go ahead and pick that up because it comes with all this extra content. But as you've seen here, not long after it was in the market, Arcade 1-Up released a firmware that removed one of the Atari 2600 games from the system, Star Raiders. Now, they have a decent reason for removing it. The control scheme isn't compatible with what was released by Arcade 1-Up. Not sure why. I can understand Star Raiders on 5200 because that required some kind of number pad, but Star Raiders on the Atari 2600, I wouldn't think have that. But regardless, the game didn't work properly, and so instead of fixing it, they just deleted it. And in exchange for removing that content that you, in all marketing, you thought you were getting, they went ahead and loaded video pinball, which is, hey, in this day and age, maybe it's hugely popular, ranked up there with the excitement of Stern pinballs. Yeah, maybe not. So if you're someone like me, right, that has all this crap behind you, all these physical games, we grew up playing all these systems where we purchased physical games, we owned them. Even today, right? And what are our kids and their kids going to look like? They're all playing games now on Xbox Game Pass. They're buying digital games to their PlayStation 5s, to their Switches, to the PCs. When fast forward 20 years from now, are they going to have any of those games to even play anymore? Are they going to be able to share the nostalgia of their childhood with their kids? It's looking like no. You're seeing major game consoles shut down their stores, their servers, their platforms. You're seeing content providers, streaming content providers, remove movies, TV shows that you can get no other way. They're just gone to history, gone to the ether. And so, yeah, technically you could go pirate some of these things and get them back, but you can't legally own them. You can't legally purchase them. That's a problem. There's also another problem that I think these companies pushing us towards digital only are that people tend to neglect, right? And that's your ownership rights. When you own one of these games, when you own a physical game, you have the ability, if it sucks, if you go out and buy a $70 game and that thing sucks, you can go resell it and get part of your money back. You can go trade it in to GameStop or to somebody else who wants the game and get something different. With digital, you can't do that. You spend $70 on a game and it sucks, you're just out $70. I suppose if you have a streaming, one of the, streaming all you can eat subscription service kind of things, you can just delete it and pick up another game. But, what does that cost, right? With Game Pass, sure, you get some content with it. Sometimes you'll get games the day they come out. Sometimes it might be a year or two later after it comes out. So if you want it now, you still have to purchase it in a digital copy. Even when it does come out, like Starfield, if you want to get it a little bit early, they ask you to pay $30 to get it early so you can start playing it. And guess what? You cancel your subscription, even though you spent that $30. Guess what? It's all gone. You don't get to keep it. And so, ownership is huge. Your ability to resell the items you own is huge. On top of that, let's say you wanted to purchase a game that's been out for 2 or 3 years. By and large, when it's physical, you can walk into a GameStop, jump on eBay, and if it's in the first several years of release, you can probably get it for less than half price of what it came out when it was retail. With digital, you can't do that. Typically, people like Sony and Microsoft, they keep these titles at full price, Nintendo especially. You want to buy Mario Odyssey, it's a game that came out 7 years ago, 8 years ago now. You're paying full price. You might be lucky if you get $5 off during some special sale, but you're paying full price, which is absolutely ridiculous. And that's because of digital content. And so I freely admit I went all digital during the PlayStation 4. I had multiple PS4s throughout my house. I like to play various co-op games with my family, and it was beneficial. I found you could buy a PS4 digital game, you could load it up on both systems, you could play simultaneous. It was great. I only had to buy a game once, and we could play it all together. But as I went further along and realized some of these things were disappearing, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I decided I'm, really just probably when the PS5 came out is about this time frame, right? That I had gotten real heavy back into retro gaming, rebuilding the collection I had sold off a few years earlier and then some. And I just, from that point on, just decided physical was the only way for me. I will buy some digital games, but I also buy the physical version so that I don't lose it. I will buy some indie games digital because they may not ever come out physical. But for by and large, if they're things I care about, they're things I want to own, I'm buying them physical, even if it costs me a little bit more to do so. And if retailers disappear that are offering these games, and then that will cause publishers to stop printing them and having them made. Maybe companies like, Limited Run, Super Rare Games, Special Reserve, 8-Bit Dough, or I Am 8-Bit. Maybe some of those are able to maintain licenses and produce physical games. I hope so. But it's a scary future, and it's one I don't want to be a part of. And I think it's important that we as gamers that care about this industry and care about the nostalgia and care about passing these things on to future generations, that we do something about it in order to protect that future. And so what I propose is and I have to find it here. Awesome. Is a Bill of Rights for digital consumers, right? This is something I would never push as law, but I think it should be something that consumers demand of content providers. And you'll have to, I apologize, I didn't prepare enough. It is freezing in my basement today. And yeah, I just did not set things up. So give me 1 second. Yeah, so here are some things like I think a Bill of Rights for digital consumers should have. You should have the right to ownership and transfer. Consumers should have the irrevocable right to own the digital content they purchase. So this is if we're going to go to an all digital world and physical is going to go away, and we want to protect consumers, we want to protect game creators, we want to protect the people that put all the blood, sweat, and tears into these games and preserve those for future generations. This is the Bill of Rights that will protect consumers and ensure that that happens, right? So consumers have the irrevocable right to own the digital content they purchase. This includes the ability to transfer and sell their digital goods to other consumers, ensuring that digital ownership mimics the rights of physical media ownership to a reasonable extent. So that sounds great. How do you do it? Well, there's actually a really easy way to do it. And we are going to have to drag publishers into embracing this, because they will not embrace it on their own, because they want to continue selling you old games for full price. But and so because they get all the money, they don't want you to have the money. They want to have the money. They don't want you to recoup your investment if you want to share it or sell it to somebody else. But what mechanism protects their rights, their copyright, and to that material that they sold you, and yet would allow you to transfer legal ownership of that right? Well, it's the thing everybody hates, NFTs. NFTs are the perfect way to fingerprint a digital item that you purchase, whether it's a game. I know people hate the idea of having NFTs for dumb images and things like that, and NFTs for purchasing individual items within a game. I can get on board with that not being great. But what if the game itself was an NFT, and when you bought the game, you got an NFT of the license for the game as part of that purchase? And then with modern crypto, you can actually have the code stored within the NFT. So it's not lost, it's embedded in the blockchain. And so when you go to sell it, you can go sell it to anybody you want. And all you're doing is transferring that NFT to that person. It transfers their ownership rights. Authentication of the ownership is confirmed against the blockchain, and then they can play it, and you no longer can. Seems simple. The technology exists. It would have a minor service cost associated with it. So marketplaces like Steam, Epic Store, even eBay could take a service fee in order for facilitating the transaction, but it works. And it would protect you, and it would protect the future of gaming. So what else do we need? We should have the right to continued access. And that is, if a service provider ceases operations or discontinues support for digital content, consumers retain the right to access the content they own. The provider must ensure an alternate means for consumers to back up and access their digital goods, such as offering downloadable versions or physical copies. So again, we go back to the examples of the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U shops. We go back to rumors of Sony considering shutting down the PS3 shops and services. When they do that, if you haven't saved off all your digital content on your own, that stuff is just gone. Well, I would argue if you own digital games or shows or movies from these services that you've purchased, not subscription, not that type of game where you're basically just renting, but one where you've purchased it, they should be required before shutting down that you are given an opportunity to offload those games in a way that preserves them indefinitely. Not just, oh, you go out there and do it, but they actually do it for you. Whether that is they make arrangements with places like Microsoft OneDrive or Google Drive, or they literally print the discs and send them to you. But there needs to be a way in which they offload that physical media so you can retrieve it whenever you want and it's not lost. And then it's on you to maintain backups from that purpose. But if it's using a cloud service, there you go. Next, you should have the right to software and driver continuity. So in cases where digital goods or physical goods requiring digital software drivers are discontinued, manufacturers and content creators must open source the necessary software and drivers. This ensures that the community can maintain and update these resources, allowing continued functionality of the products. So what does this mean, right? This is when we're talking about games like Fortnite, Destiny, WoW even. These games where players have not only purchased a game, but continue to spend massive amounts of money on additional content, additional DLC, all of that stuff. And these live service games, you are at the mercy of them just blinking out of existence. In fact, just recently, I believe the game is called The Day Before. I could be wrong on the title, but it's a PC game that had years of development, pre-sold to a ton of people. The day it came out, the studio closed and the game is basically inaccessible. Just ridiculous, right? And so if you want to play it, there are people now that are trying to recreate the server so the game can actually be played and live on. But they're being forced to try to figure that out on their own. That company releasing that game should be required to push out that to somebody who wants to host it so that you can continue playing that game even though the servers have been shut down. And so it's not just that, right? 3DS and Wii U services, as I mentioned, they're going to be shut down in April. They should be providing ways that you can still play Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U if you want. If you want to play Wii U Smash Brothers, you should be able to play that. They should release the servers, open source the server code so that players can continue playing those games and connecting up. Now, how do you trick it? And that's something Nintendo would have to figure out, right? How do you tell it where to go to log into those consumer or independent hosted servers? Again, part of Nintendo should have to solve that problem before they shut down those stores. It's a giant corporation. They should have to support what they purchased and what you purchased. So then you have the right to fair end-of-life practices. So consumers have the right to be fairly compensated or provided with alternatives if a product or service they purchase is discontinued. This includes adequate notice before discontinuation and reasonable compensation, such as refunds or credits towards future purchases. So this is an alternative to what we talked about. There's a lot that goes into licensing, right? Some things just can't be open source because maybe they sub-license a particular engine or a development or graphics engine, or maybe they license certain music, right? That tends to be a big one in film. They won't release some things on DVD or even streaming because they don't have the licenses to the music that was originally included in those shows. But so in the event that there literally is no way that they could open up or allow independent people to continue to support the content, then you should be able to get compensated for the fact that the item you purchased can no longer be used. The item you own can't be used. And in those cases, should you get a full refund? Of course not. So what does that compensation look like? Maybe it's just discounts off a future iteration, right? So if they shut down the Destiny 2 servers to bring up Destiny 3, which they won't do, but let's say that that happens, then you should be able to get some sort of discounted, steeply discounted version of Destiny 3 so you can jump in and keep playing. Again, Destiny's a bad example, but it makes the point. And so those are 4 of the key Bill of Rights I think we as consumers need. There can be more, right? Transparency is an issue, quality and consistency of service, accessibility, right to refunds and returns, right? If you purchase one of these games and it sucks and you purchased it digitally, you should be able to return it for a full refund. You should have some normal grace period, whether that's 24, 48 hours. I don't know what that would be. Maybe it's not of purchase, but of the time you actually started playing. That's when the clock starts. You want to prevent somebody from being able to purchase a game and then beat the thing, of course, and then just try to return it. But there's got to be a happy medium or mechanism in there that says, okay, you've played it enough that from this point on you own it. Of course, we've seen that with various demos, right? You get the first 5 or 6 hours of a game, or first hour of a game, or first level of a game. And then once you pass that point, it's a point of no return that now, hey, you've played it enough. You know whether you want to keep it or not. And so if you continue on, you don't get a refund. A right of platform neutrality, right? How many of these things should be required to be moved between generations, so you don't have to do what Nintendo's forcing consumers to do, which is to buy the same thing over and over, right? I've got Mario Kart 8 on Wii U. I've got Mario Kart 8 on Nintendo Switch. Literally the same game, literally the underlying same code, optimized a little different, but those platforms actually are identical. They're just in a different form factor. And so, why should a consumer have to buy it twice if they've bought it digitally? It should just go onto the new system, especially in the case of like Nintendo, when all they did was really change the form factor. It really wasn't that much different. So as you're looking at some of these, these games as we go into, say, interestingly, I think that's when Sony's actually kind of embraced, at least in this interim period between PS4 and PS5, is that if you own a PS4 version of a game, generally they give you the free upgrade to the PS5 version, or it's fairly cheap, usually $10. I think Last of Us 2 Remastered is an example. If you own Last of Us 2 on PS4, you can get the remaster version for $10 to play on PS5, because all it is upgraded graphics. If you spend that $10, you're wasting your money. That game is just got a terrible, terrible story. Plays fine, but it is a terrible story. So Last of Us, first one, fantastic. Don't want to make this a Last of Us stream. First one was great. Second one was just poorly executed. When you become the villain partway through, I just found myself wishing the end of the game every time I died. That was the end of the game, and I would have been satisfied. Really unlikable character that they force you to play for half the game, and it just, plus it's too much of a direct rip-off of Walking Dead. I mean, get some goddamn original ideas, but that's besides the point. But so, right to legacy support, right? So that's, so there's some of these things that, consumers should have. But really those 4 I mentioned, the the right to ownership and transfer, the right to continue to access, right to software and driver continuity, and the right to fair end-of-life practices. Those are really the keys. And I think if consumers were able to rally around ideas like that, they would be protected in an all-digital world. And in lieu of those, it's physical, right? I'll stay physical, even if the physical is just a download to the rest of the game, because Lord knows AAA titles these days they ship them too fast. They're not finished. They push everything out at the last second. Hell, even the 4K Legends Pinball from Ad Games, which, dear Lord, are you going to send me a bill so I can pay you? Even that has a big day one patch, because they're getting it out to meet deadlines rather than ensuring it's perfect before releasing it, which does not bode well for us pre-order guinea pigs. Seems to play well on Wagner's Tech Talks example, but there are questions. Some of the lighting looks odd. The graphics on some of the rails look flat. They don't look like they're lit or rendered. The lighting isn't rendered properly. We know they had problems making it play, those Zen pinballs play, and maybe that's what they did to fix it. Dear Lord, I hope not. So hopefully they'll have that released. It'll look better than it did on his stream. The latency sounded like it's terrible. And that goes from not taking enough time before releasing these things, before rushing them out the door. And I know they want to meet consumer expectations, but man, maybe you should have got this shit worked out before you sold it to anybody, so that then you just had to ship the working product. But man, the list of things it doesn't have when it comes out, the store, some of the other games aren't ready. That they've been advertising, that there's something broken with entering coupon codes that they hope to have fixed by the time you get it. Just scary stuff that it's like, man, just do that stuff before you push this shit out to people. And sorry, I'm just using them as an example because every publisher is doing that. And again, part of the problem with development today. But so I've said my piece. That's where I am. I've gone back to physical, and I'm never going back to digital. So if you've enjoyed this video and you stuck around, I would highly appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell for notification. And as you may know, YouTube is fickle. And so even if you subscribe, you may not get notifications. So just so you know, we do stream every Saturday at 9:30 Central. Join us for another Saturday Night Live stream next week. Please share this video out to your friends if you liked it. And I might see you Monday on another person's stream. So hope to catch you then. That's it for me. And I will catch you on the next one. And until then, have fun.